Okay, I'm going to call this meeting of the Lawndale City Council to order. I'm going to ask the city clerk to give us the roll call, please. Madam City Clerk.
Mayor Pro Tem Suarez.
Here.
Councilmember Kearney.
Here.
Councilmember Reed.
Here.
Councilmember Osborne.
Here.
Mayor Pullen Miles.
Here.
Please let the records reflect that all are present.
Thank you, Madam City Clerk. I'm going to ask Pastor George Magalini from the Hope Chapel of Hawthorne to lead us in a word of inspiration. And we're going to ask Councilmember Pat Kearney to first lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Please join us.
Good evening, everyone. Folks, would you pray with me? Father God, we do want to acknowledge your presence, and we thank you for your presence. And Lord, I personally thank you for your word and the rich promises that are there for us, as you share in Jeremiah 29:11. You know the plans that you have for us, plans to prosper us, not to harm us, plans to give us a hope and a future. And I thank you for the prosperity, the hope, and the future that you have for the city of Lawndale. Lord, I specifically want to just pray your protection upon every citizen, particularly the children, Lord God. Pray that you protect them from the time they're in their mother's womb to the time that they're launched into adulthood. We thank you for our seniors. We thank you for their wisdom and their contribution. Pray that you bless, protect, and provide for them. And we thank you for those that you have raised up to protect and to serve us, Lord. We thank you for our sheriff's department, fire department. Pray that you would watch over them as they watch over us. And finally, Lord, I thank you for everyone that you've raised up here for such a time as this. Pray that you give them the wisdom tonight to make decisions that are in line with your timeless word, decisions that will benefit the people of this community. I personally pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor. Okay, let's have our presentation by PATH, People Assisting the Homeless, Homelessness in the South Bay. Haley Fuselier will give us a presentation.
Fuselier.
All right, thank you.
I'm from the South.
From the South,
French.
okay.
All right. So, thank you. My name is Haley Fuselier. I'm a senior director at People Assisting the Homeless, PATH. I cover all of our programs from the Pacific Palisades all the way to San Pedro, all the way up to Carson, Lawndale, Hawthorne. So what we call the greater Los Angeles area, just not the metro. It's just not downtown. Oh, this is Grace. I'm sorry. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Well, I'm Grace Farwell with the South Bay Cities Council of Governments, and so I'm here tonight to talk about the relationship with the COG and PATH.
Welcome, Grace.
Thank you.
Not tech. Okay, so we're going to go over some homeless statistics and then get a little bit detailed. So the way that we know who is who and where they are is once a year in January, everyone in Los Angeles is asked to go out and count. And this is how we get our census of our homeless population in each specific city. It is a visual survey, and so you're driving around or walking, depending on the terrain, counting each individual. And there is an equation, USC assists, and those numbers come out usually in June. We count in January, numbers come out in June, and that is how services are then allocated to each city and each service planning area. The county is separated into 8 service planning areas, and a lot of different service providers come together and are basically your service planning area team. So it's kind of small, but this is from our last count here in Lawndale. 33 were counted. And as you can, I know you can't, I'm hoping that you can see it in your packet. There is a difference between unsheltered and sheltered homelessness. Unsheltered is literally on the sidewalk, and sheltered might be either in the car, in a van, in an RV, or in an actual interim shelter facility run by a nonprofit. As you can see, I've only had a slight increase, but you are seeing a lot of tents, and then you saw a lot of cars. And what we're finding is during the day, those cars are not necessarily visible. They're visible at night because a lot of individuals that are living in their cars might have jobs. So we are trying to give a variety of timing for outreach to make sure that everyone is reached, or if they're going to a church, that a church can call us so we can know who's who. So these are your city statistics. They are kept, and when we are divvying up services, this is how we figure out what's going on in your planning area. Your planning area is 8, and we are one of the outreach teams that works in your service planning area. All right.
So now briefly, with the Council of Governments, we're very involved with our cities providing homeless coordination services. So when Measure H passed a few years ago, that was the quarter-cent sales tax. It is expected to raise about $355 million per year throughout LA County, and then those monies are provided for service providers as well as councils of government throughout LA County. So the South Bay Cities Council of Governments has received a portion of that funding to provide coordination services amongst our cities. And so we do that by working with service providers such as PATH, Harbor Interfaith, which is our CES lead, and I know Courtney's going to explain that a little bit later. Oh, yeah, Haley. And then we also, on an every other month basis, we have a homeless services task force meeting that we encourage our city staff as well as any elected officials to attend, and we really talk about different issues that are facing our various cities and service providers. And then recently, the COG, well, we're in the process. We just actually got our contract executed with the county, so we are going to have some innovation funds, and we're really looking at things from a county-wide, or a region-wide basis. And so we're going to be developing some region-wide programs. We're looking at home sharing as a prevention strategy for homelessness. We're looking at safe parking, as Haley referred. There are a number of individuals that are currently living in their cars, and so we might be able to look at a safe parking program. And so we're really trying to focus on some region-wide programs. And then the county is really big on collaboration amongst cities that are in a geographic location. And so one thing that the COG really wants to do is look at how we can connect Lawndale and Hawthorne and Gardena potentially to look at what are the issues facing those 3 cities and how we can work together. And then COG has an interesting history with PATH, because in 2016 we went to our elected officials in the county. So we went to the Board of Supervisors, in particular Mark Ridley Thomas's office and Janice Hahn's office, saying that we want PATH to be in the South Bay. So this is even before Measure H started. And so we were able to get funding specifically for PATH in the South Bay to provide outreach services. And so now I'll turn it back over to Haley so she can explain a little bit more about the services that are provided.
So Grace mentioned CES. It's called the Coordinated Entry System. So in 2014, we decided that we were going to start a pilot program and see how we could streamline services and resources. And what that came up with was the service planning areas. Each area has a lead, which is a lead agency. After that, all the other agencies that were working in that area, we went out and in the streets, and we basically created by name lists of everyone that was living in these areas. And we match. So it's kind of like a dating app. If you've got this many resources and this many people, it would all match up perfectly. But there's only like 3 resources in all these people to kind of coincide. And so what we do is we meet together to figure out who is best for this resource. So if they are over 55, if they are a veteran and they need nursing care, and that's the resource that comes up, they get it first. The way that we figure out who's first, second, and third is a CES assessment. It's a 40-page assessment asking a lot of different personal questions, and the individual gets a score. And basically the highest score is the most likely to die on the streets, and the lowest score is someone that basically just needs a little bit of a boost. A little bit, maybe it might be financial help, or it might just mean helping finding resources. And each area, as you can see, all the 8 areas, has a list. And they have the resources, and on sometimes once a month, sometimes it's once a week, we match. We meet together, we case conference, and we figure out what appropriate resource can go to the appropriate individual. We are in as spot 8. Harbor Interfaith is the agency that is the lead, and the reason why we are in the South Bay, like Grace just said, is because we have a contract with the COG to cover the whole area. Coordinated entry system, I just said, basically there's no wrong door. Any person that is experiencing homelessness can walk into any agency in any area and still get served, despite whether they live there or not, and then they'll be referred to the proper agency in the proper area. This came about mainly for families. If a family is coming in looking for services, you can't turn them away because we need to figure out how to get the children inside immediately. And then that was kind of dispersed down to the single system. So no matter where you walk in, if you're experiencing homelessness, any agency that's involved with coordinated entry can assist you. What is street outreach? So Measure H is a lot of money. And it got a lot of people out on the streets, meaning workers outreaching. So what does outreach mean? It is literally pounding the pavement. It is introducing yourself and figuring out what the city dynamics are, what the culture is in the city, what the resources are in the city. But it's also relationship building. And so a lot of what our teams are doing is building rapport. They're getting to know specific individuals and why they are where they are, and getting to know the trauma that they've experienced to realize why they're still where they are. And another thing that the teams do is they navigate this great system that we have. A county-wide system is extremely intimidating for a person. And so the workers are called housing navigators to navigate all of the systems to get them from the sidewalk inside. It is, again, a no wrong door. It's a harm reduction. You're not penalized if you are using. We basically focus on behavior, not necessarily use. It is trauma informed, and it is experienced, skilled workers all over the county on the streets. And the one way that you can connect to those outreach workers to make sure that they are coming out in your city is this website. If you remember one thing from tonight, it is lahop.org. If you see people, it doesn't matter where. It can be in Lawndale, it can be downtown, it can be in Palmdale. If they are experiencing homelessness, you can go to this website and you fill out, as you can see here, it pings where you are. So you just have to click on that button and the address where you are comes up. Then it asks you a series of questions. What do they look like? Do you know their name? Any distinguishing things? If they have an orange tent, you can write that down. If they have a name, if you know their license plate number. And then a team is, it's funneled to the team, and they have to go out within 72 hours. The reason why we give it 72 hours is to usually locate the person. We locate usually in 24 hours. It's just if someone is moved, then we're not going to be able to know. What this says is that if PATH engages someone They are now on our caseload, meaning we're responsible to give them all the resources that we have and set them up for as much stability as we can. We cover a lot of different cities. There's a team of 6 that covers most of the South Bay cities. And so we will be assigned directly the cities that we're working in. If it's on a border, then we'll case conference. Somebody will call and say, do you know who this is? Do you know where they are? If they're already in our computer database, then we'll do the same thing. We'll case conference to see why are they still on the streets and why are they not connected. So again, if you remember one thing, it is to go to lahop.org and start referring. That is how you're going to get more services for the individuals on your streets to your city. A little bit about PATH. PATH is an organization. We're 30 years old now. We started in Westwood out of a church. They thought if they handed out some food that they could solve homelessness in a few years. That was in 1984, and here we are today. We are a statewide organization. We are in San Jose, Santa Barbara, San Diego, and Los Angeles. And again, what we're doing is outreaching, building permanent housing, as well as trying to get people stable. What we're doing out here is pretty innovative because of the taxes that we have with Measure H. We have people on our train system, on the metro system. We have people working the weekends. We have people in the hospitals. We have nurses on our teams. We have mental health professionals on our teams. And we are trying to be all encompassing. So if someone needs to call their mom to get home, we can not only call them, we can pay for them to get home, and then we can also figure out what they need to stay in their mom's house. If they have an open wound, we can call the nurse. If they can't find their benefits and they think that somebody's stealing their money, we have benefits advocacy. The city of Los Angeles is making sure that all teams have everything in their pockets in order to help the individuals on the streets. So this is your team. This is John and Linda, and they're the ones that they're here on Fridays, and they are outreaching and they are conducting assessments, and they are attempting to house those individuals that can be housed. If not, then we are offering ongoing supportive services. I'm sure you're thinking, well, there's still people out on the streets, so what exactly are you doing? There's a housing crisis in Los Angeles. It's less than 2% vacancy rate. Also, the rent is about an average of $2,000. And some individuals are only receiving Social Security, like our seniors. They're never going to get more money than what they have right now. They can't live in a one-bedroom. They can't afford it. And so we have to be pretty creative, or we have to wait for federal, state, or county resources to kind of trickle down to us. Ways that you can support, LA Hop, I can't say enough, LA Hop, LA Hop, LA Hop. And we do have a program, if you go to our website, to help people move in. Last year, the county housed 22,000 people. It's a lot, in a good way. And so if you'd like to be a part of that success, you can go to any one of these forums. Courtney, I'm so sorry, is sick, and with all of the hoopla about the viruses going around, when you're sick, it's now stay home, so that's why. But Courtney is going to be your direct contact, and there is her email. And again, I just want to, Los Angeles is in a crisis, and we are trying very hard to be very creative. We are partnering with shared housing, so people can share homes, can share rooms in order so that they're not on the streets. We're working with the Department of Health Services to make sure that everything that they have for those in need of medical assistance is gotten. More shelters are being built, but not in this area. There's not enough shelter beds for those individuals that live on the street. The closest shelter is most likely in Long Beach, and so it's hard to convince someone from this area to go to Long Beach or downtown, because it's just a different area that they're not necessarily comfortable with. There are a lot of programs, and PATH is making sure that your city has access, or at least the knowledge of all of them. That's it. Not sure if it's question time now.
Okay, thank you for that presentation. Are there any questions of the presentation? We do have some questions for you.
I do.
Yes, sir.
Haley, first, thank you for that presentation. You know, I can remember when at the COG, PATH was first presented, I forget, 5-6 years ago, it seems like. It was a while back. At that time, only Don Kanabe's district was enacting, and so the COG was working to get it in our district, which is Mark Ridley Thomas. Took a little doing, but eventually it happened. How long have you been with PATH? I was curious.
4 years.
4 years. So you weren't there when the inception came into the South Bay region.
No, but my partner Meredith Berkson was,
Right.
yes. I was on the sidelines, not necessarily.
I know we were told at a past COG meeting that after Measure H passed, a lot of people left PATH to go to work for the county under
Yes.
Measure H.
Yes, there's a lot of county positions open with the Los Angeles Homeless Service Authority, and that's who snubbed.
Some are
the-
going there to make more money over there, so it
Yes,
almost
yes,
became
yes.
a thing like that. But I do have one thing that's more like a criticism. I have to say that when it was first presented to us, it was at steering committee meetings when this was all being discussed. And a gentleman whose name escapes me, Grace might know who I'm talking about. I can't remember if he was the owner of PATH or the founder or the...
Joel?
Could have been. I don't recall the name. He came to the presentation basically to sell all the elected officials on this. And I asked a question, and I said, well, based on past performance, let's say in Don Kanabe's district, you must have established a success rate in terms of a percentage or a number or something of that sort. What could we expect in terms of, likewise, what would be our number? Can you give us something to quantify what we could expect out of this? He told me 70% success rate. Well, I guess I must have misinterpreted that, or maybe I was misled. I couldn't say which, because I look at that like you take the number, like 100 homeless people, and 70 of those are going to be found housing or off the streets. Certainly that didn't happen. Perhaps he was talking only about those people that can get help, because we know that, I want to say the ones that we see most around town, I don't think housing is really the issue. I think it's mental health, and they really should be placed forcibly, if need be, into a mental institution or hospital or something that can treat them and help them. So in terms of, and I did have one specific question for you. Of the homeless people in Lawndale that PATH has contacted, have they done any sort of assessment to determine a percentage of those that could be found housing and placed in housing versus the number that looks like they're just not going to accept help? They just would rather this lifestyle living on the street. Have you ever broken that down?
Yes. So with the individuals, the way that PATH works in a harm reduction manner is that everyone can get housed if and when they're ready. We don't experience a lot of the word resistance to housing. It's resistance to understanding the system and how it's changed over the past few years. If there's no housing to place individuals into, then housing, the percentage of housing is going to drop. And
Well, can I interrupt for just 1 second? Mm-hmm. I've been told that some of the issues involving the housing means that there are lifestyle changes that are forced upon them. You must get treatment for drugs, you must
No.
get so on forth, counseling or whatever it
No,
may
it's
be.
the same as you or I leasing up. It's an apartment to lease up. If they choose to go into a sober living, absolutely. Otherwise, no, it's the same as any other individual signing a lease.
So there's no restrictions on their lifestyle that's
No.
placed on them?
No. Again, it's just like you or I if we were renting an apartment. If they'd like to access mental health care, absolutely that's there. If they'd like to access substance use assistance, absolutely that's there.
Well, maybe that explains why I see some of these people have been on the streets for a couple of years, because they're still there, and they've been here for years.
The issue is the housing and the rent. So if you're on the streets and you're getting Social Security, like I said earlier, the max that you're receiving is probably maybe $900, tops $1,300. And if the rent is $2,000, then you're not going to be able to afford a one-bedroom apartment. That's why we're looking into shared, and we're working with other organizations for either room share, house sharing, or things like that.
Well, I have one last question, Robert.
Yes, sir.
For the future, can you do as I asked the whoever his title was, the owner or whatever, is there an expectation that the city can have on past success rate? Or is it just unknown? I just
Yeah,
love to
I
know.
think at the COG meetings, we're doing a better job of explaining exactly what we're doing and how many individuals we're seeing. That's where the reports go. There's only 6 individuals that cover 28 cities?
15 within the
cities.
South Bay.
And so we're only coming to your city once a week.
Right.
And so it does lack the consistency, but there's just not enough workers in order to serve every single city as often as it needs.
But I was asking for something that's like a guesstimate of what we could expect for the future, let's say. Of the number that we have, is there a guesstimate of how many
I
might?
can't do that because I don't know the housing opportunities that might come down. Just for instance, we hadn't seen vouchers in over a year, and we just got vouchers last week. It's 20 vouchers per serving planning area. Each serving planning area has about, depending on the cities, it's probably between 5,000 and 8,000 individuals. So that's 20 vouchers that came down for all those individuals. So
Is that affected by the Measure H? Because we know they have, what, billions of dollars now that they've collected, and they say
no,
that
the vouchers
production
is not
slow.
Measure H, unfortunately.
Okay. All right, I yield.
Okay, Councilman Reed.
Okay, yeah, it kind of follows along the same note. So we know that we had 33 people in the last count here in January. From the 31 from last year, obviously keeping individuals out of it, how many of those 31 of the ones that were actually on street, not in car, how many of those were actually placed somewhere? Or are they still bouncing around? Because again, we see some that have been here for 2, 3, 4 years.
Yes. So permanently housed, I don't actually have that number. 3 months out of the year, there's shelter available, and we do, people might go in, but then they leave. So I can get those exact numbers for you. But again, unless we have the subsidy, meaning the vouchers, a lot of our individuals are not getting housed.
And then another point specific to an experience that I've had over the past 6 months is mental health and drug addiction. Someone landed on my doorstep that I knew 20 years ago, and all of her family's gone. Her only living relative was in a nursing home. Tried to get her into mental health to get help, and she was out in less than 36 hours. Are you guys tied in with them? Is there
Yes.
any other assistance there? Is there buttons we need to push to help?
Yes.
Because that's definitely a weak point that needs to be.
So everyone that comes into contact with a homeless business entity funding meets on a weekly basis in some form or another. So we meet everyone, the Department of Mental Health, Department of Health Services, clinics in your area, sometimes police, sheriffs, depending on the area. We're meeting constantly to figure out so that no one slips through the cracks. The Department of Mental Health is very difficult to access. If you go in, it can take up to 6 months to get just an appointment sometimes. And that's why it helps to be linked to other agencies to see if there's a smaller clinic or different type of insurance options and things like that to access. But yes, in a county this large, our county mental health systems are very, very overburdened. A lot of our sheriffs are working specifically with the Department of Mental Health to have somebody ride with them, which is a tremendous help to us, because then the individuals on the streets that you're seeing can be hospitalized faster than going through us or going through your police, because the Department of Mental Health can take over. That's what I'd say would be needed to ride with your sheriffs.
Okay. And then lastly would be nonprofits that are assisting. Is there a directory somewhere of local nonprofits that are helping?
Absolutely.
In the case that I had here, every single resource I tapped, no one had anything, and half of them didn't answer the phone.
So, because there isn't a lot to offer, it depends on what you would need. The LA HOP is going to be your direct access to all types of services. If you come to the COG meeting, there's a list of all the individuals, because we're actually there. But we can also send you that. It's also on LAHSA's website, who's working in every single area and every corner of your service planning area.
I'll reserve my comments from there. I'm done. Thank you.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem.
I have a question regarding the homeless count. So a few of my colleagues and I, we participate every year in January. And I think one of the questions a lot of people probably have is how accurate is that number? There's areas that we don't always go into because they're alley and for the safety of the volunteers. And then also too, if it's one time throughout, the entire year, and there could be, depending on the circumstances, they're not always at that location, or they're at that time, they're not at their, wherever they might try and squat. So if you could speak a little more to that, and also too, if how accurate is the number? Is it more or less? Is there a margin area?
So USC and again LASA have the equation and how it comes about. But yes, every year you are right. You start to wonder what happens if they moved just for tonight. What happens if they went inside? So we do it in January because it's supposed to be the coldest night of the year. And what you're supposed to say is these individuals couldn't get inside. And so these are our most vulnerable individuals on the streets, and that's why we're counting on that last January. What LASA has done over the past probably 3 to 4 years is make sure that we are covering every inch, whether it's us on those 3 nights, whether service agencies go back because something wasn't covered, whether it's through our demographic surveys, which is when we go out and actually speak to them, or whether it's through volunteers. And so I think now is probably way more comprehensive than last year and the year before. Is it accurate? I think as close as we're gonna get. I think there's a lot of averaging. You are right. If there's a tent, we can't open it up and count. Same with a car or an RV unless you actually see the individuals. After speaking with some of the volunteers at USC that did it, they were very passionate that they had reached the right equation and the right percentage of people in time. But a lot is riding on those numbers. And so I do think that LASA and the city and the county are doing their best every year to improve it.
And then my other question is, there's different types of homeless. And so do we have, for our city specifically, a number in which we can say, it's this many homeless due to maybe just financial, this many, it's health reasons, mental reasons. Do we have any type of
Yes.
categorizing for our city specifically?
Yes. So everybody that is seen goes into a central database that we share as nonprofits, anyone that's paid for by LASA, basically, so that we can pull that information to see what kind of services you might need at what time. It changes unless your population is static. If they are in need of medical, it's a 911. And so, like I said earlier, with the Department of Health Services now at the table, it's getting a lot easier to get those with medical needs inside and also get their insurance straight. Because I think a lot of what burdens individuals is the insurance if it's not done correctly. And that's how we work through our prevention services as well. To get, if they're inside, then they have to pay this huge medical bill, and we don't want them to end up in the streets. And so we have prevention services and things like that. But I think that a nonprofit can't do it on their own. I don't run mental health, and I don't run health services, and that's why everybody has to be at the table now. We can get those numbers for you. It might change, and we can also, so it also depends on what they tell us, because it's all client-based.
Okay.
With what their words are.
And that's all I had for now.
Okay.
I'll let you do.
Okay, hey, I want to thank you and Grace for coming tonight and for your presentation. I do have a few questions for you. Kind of piggybacking on Councilmember Osborne's remarks. When this discussion first started a few years ago with the South Bay COG, they asked the mayors in various cities to sign off on a letter, basically persuading the county to employ a path to work in our area. And I believe I was either the first or the second mayor to actually sign the letter, although I was very skeptical at the time. And I have to say today, I'm still somewhat skeptical, just so you know, just to be frank. Because I'm not sure how do we measure success. And I'm not sure years later how we are reaching that goal of what we would define as success. Now, I understand it's a work in progress, right? And I understand about the housing crisis and all some of the problems that go along with it. But at this point, I'm not sure how far are we to that goal. Are we reaching a goal, or are we moving back? I haven't had the level of communications from PATH or whoever's responsible that I thought we were gonna have. I do attend occasionally the homeless meetings, the coalition meetings, or what have you. But a lot of times that's in my capacity of working for the California State Assembly, and not necessarily as mayor. Although obviously they speak about Lawndale in the area in general. But I haven't had that type of response as a city official. Now, I am delighted to see that we have an actual team. I don't know how long we've had this team. I know we used to have, a while ago, a young lady, at least one young lady who was working in PATH. I don't know what happened to her. I know she was pretty successful, and I have not seen or had any communications from her in at least maybe a year. So I don't know what that was about. So let me get to my question, just so you know where I'm coming from. Since we've started with PATH, I would like to know how many people have been taken off the streets. It's a little different from the numbers that Councilmember Daniel Reed spoke about, the 33 versus the 31 from previously. We're just talking about since we started working with PATH, how many people in the city of Lawndale have been taken off Lawndale streets?
I don't have that since 2016, when everything started. I don't have that number offhand. I can get it, but like I said, and as for we don't do city reports. I'm not sure if that was something that was promised in the beginning, because we can return to that. What we try to do at the COG meetings is break it down city by city, the LA HOP referrals that we receive, as well as the individuals that we assessed, as well as those housed, as well as events that might happen in different areas. So we can pull that together and beef that up at the COG meeting, not a problem.
Okay. And the reason why I asked about the how many people in total has been taken off the streets in the city of Lawndale as a way of measuring the success. Let's say, for instance, and this is not even rhetorical, because this actually happens. If you are a business owner and you have a homeless person lodging in front of your establishment, and that person for some reason is no longer there, maybe they got housing or just moved on or what have you, only to be replaced by another person, to that business person, that's not success. It's still 100% of the time someone homeless lodging in front of his or her establishment, and affecting customers and et cetera. So that's why I'm not really sure, how do you measure success? Is it because if we take one person away from in front of that business, but yet they go around the corner or go to another city, does that count as success? Even though they were replaced by another person the next week or the next day, is that success? I'm not really sure. I wouldn't think it was success if I was a business owner, and definitely if I was a customer or resident seeking to patronize that business. So I'm not sure about that. You spoke about the funding for, we spoke about the funding for Measure H. How much of that funding for Measure H, a lot of money, how much has that been allocated to the city of Lawndale? And let me say this before you start. When we first started this discussion, I had no idea about how homeless services work or any of that thing. Totally a novice. And because of the discussions being at the COG and my day job, I quickly find out that serving the homeless population is actually a cottage industry, and it's very competitive. You know, you talk about people going from one job to another one because, you know, the salary. You can't blame people from, you know, they want to make more money or what have you. But I'm talking about as a business, for these agencies themselves that are in the business of serving the homeless population. I quickly found out that is a brutal business, you know, and there's a lot of dealing that goes on or what have you. And I'm not sure that if that has an effect on the success rate or not, because some agencies would like territories and it's all about you getting the contract, and yet is it evidence-based, and how do you get to renew your contract? Is it simply because you've had it before and everyone's happy, or is there some? I just don't know how that works. I'm totally in the dark.
Measure H is based off of the count. So the funding for each service planning area depends on the number of individuals that are counted each year. I don't think that they divvy it up city by city, but that might be more for you to talk as a whole, if you break it down in Service Planning 8 by all of the different cities. So the Measure H is given to LAHSA, the LA Homeless Service Authority. And you're right, we write contracts, and we present programs, and then people get the contracts. New people, usually it's a contract each year. They change it constantly, LAHSA. But again, new contracts might come out after the homeless count numbers come out in June. But it's not, we don't know when that's going to happen. We're kind of at mercy of the count and LAHSA and the county. Because so LAHSA is a city and a county entity. It's supposed to be neutral with both people participating together. We have to kind of wait until they speak and then give it time.
Okay, so is there a way to kind of figure out, one, how many people, well, you're going to bring that back to us at some point, how many people has been taken off the streets in Lawndale since we contracted with PATH through the COG, and about how much of the money is allocated? I know it's not city by city, but how much of it is actually?
So I don't actually have access to that. Again, it's, that's all with LAHSA and the county.
Well, the reason why that's really important is because how do we know we're getting our fair share of resources? You know, when they lobbied us, they lobbied the mayors and the elected officials. It was all, we're all in this together.
So
kind
I
of
don't
thing.
think
And
this
we
is
might
Measure
be, but
H.
I don't know.
I'm not sure that is this Measure H money, COG? Yeah, from the, so your supervisors, the supervisor is the one that separated money in order for PATH to be able to serve. We are also in different areas, and I think a lot of different COGs have different little, so your supervisors would be the individuals to ask about the money allocation.
So the homeless deputy for Supervisor Mark Ridley Thomas would be the person who would house this data?
Yes.
Okay. And two last questions for you. You spoke of the innovation funds. Can you tell me about how much of that innovation funds, Grace did, innovation funds will trickle down to the service in the city of Lawndale?
Well, so overall, the innovation funds there was, last year, the Board of Supervisors identified $6 million that they were going to divide up amongst the different COGs. And based on our homeless population overall, our percentage of the pot in LA County, we're about 12%. And so as a result, we're receiving just under $740,000 that we have to spend by June of 2021. And during that time, actually in November, we put out a call for papers or call for projects to all of our cities. And we received about 10 projects back. The majority of those projects, there was quite a bit of overlap, looking at education and training, looking at safe parking, looking at home sharing. So really trying to identify someone who may have extra room in their home who could then rent a room out to somebody. And we're looking really at those individuals who may still be working but just can't afford to live somewhere else. And then there are a couple other things. So we're really taking those innovation funds and looking at things on a regional basis. But we do have some monies available for client aid. We're looking at different ordinances that the cities may have. So there's nothing specific that's going to Lawndale. So I guess that's the bottom line to your question. But we are looking at the majority of that money on a region-wide basis. The city of Torrance applied for funding to do a homelessness plan. So we're giving them $50,000. The city of Redondo Beach is doing a pilot project looking at working with the court system, and so we're helping them with that pilot project. The rest of the funding is going to be on a region-wide basis. So those are the only two cities that actually are going to be receiving funding.
So let me piggyback on that, and I'm going to wrap it up. You mentioned about putting Lawndale with a project with Hawthorne and Gardena, although we don't border Gardena. I'm wondering why not Torrance and Redondo Beach in Hawthorne?
Well, then, we could look at all of them. Torrance itself, I think the makeup of their city is different than, just because of the sheer size of the city versus Lawndale. And then our beach cities tend to have worked together. So through a couple of years ago, the county, when they first started putting out money, they put out a call for projects if a city wanted to do a homelessness plan. So 7 of our 15 cities actually developed homelessness plans. And going forward, when the county puts out additional funding for implementation funds, part of the requirement is to have a homelessness plan, or you work in collaboration with another city that may already have a homelessness plan. So for instance, with the implementation funds, the three of the beach cities, so Manhattan Beach, Hermosa Beach, Redondo Beach, got together and they put in a proposal, and they've actually they're working with Harbor Interfaith to have a housing navigator specifically for the beach cities and also case management. The county is, as I mentioned earlier, the county is really kind of big on trying to look at collaboration amongst cities. So we were looking at, possibly the 3 cities that I mentioned, Lawndale, Hawthorne, Gardena, because maybe the makeup of the city is a little bit more closely aligned. Hawthorne did do a homelessness plan. Gardena did not. And so Hawthorne might be the one that kind of carries others on their backs unless we can get some other cities to develop homelessness plans.
Okay.
And I think we have funds available that if the city of Lawndale wants to look at that, that's something that we can definitely discuss.
Okay, that's something we can discuss. We do have somewhat of a homeless plan. I don't know if it fits the description of what you're describing, but our city manager is going to give us a presentation a little later. Let me have Councilmember Peck.
Just one
jump in
question.
here real quick.
Let's say your team comes here in Lawndale and we find 6 homeless people that went to shelter. You said the closest shelter is in Long Beach. Do you provide rides for them?
Yes.
Okay,
So if anybody says yes to shelter, yes, we take them.
okay. My question. And have you contacted the Department of Transportation about Caltrans funding? Because a lot of our homeless population are on Caltrans property. It takes our staff and our sheriff's deputy to
Yes, so
contact them.
there is a Caltrans representative that works at LASA that is supposed to be communicating with us during cleanups and things like that. You're right. We can't necessarily enter that property on occasion, depending on the fencing and the borders. And so there is communication. There's not a set plan like there is with other city entities and county entities. But I think Caltrans just got to LASA in the past 3 or 4 months. So we're hoping that communication will be beefed up.
Thank you.
Okay, and the last thing I would request, if you would provide the city manager with like a monthly or bi-monthly report on how we're doing the activities, or can we look forward to that? Or?
I think that we can have talks about that, because we'd have to talk to the supervisors, because if we do it for one city, then we have to do it for all, and then we have to figure out what the difference between that report and the COG report would be, because the report goes to our supervisors. So we would just want to make sure that everybody's on the same page about what kind of report and things like that. So we can probably talk to the city manager about what kind of report he wants.
Okay, okay, you guys can talk about it later.
Yeah.
Thank you for your presentation. Okay. We are now on public safety. Is that Lieutenant? Okay. Lieutenant is going to give our public safety report. Lieutenant.
Good evening, Mayor,
Welcome,
members of
sir.
the council. I'm Lieutenant Daniel Geen. I'm here on behalf of Captain Allen, who's in training out of town this week. Just want to go over a few things, specifically our Part 1 crimes against property. As you know, last year, 2019, we had a slight increase, in our burglaries and our larceny theft as compared to 2018. There was a significant increase of 36% of burglaries increase and 22% of larceny theft. So based on that information, we noticed that there were 2 specific crimes that lifted these numbers. And these 2 crimes were vehicle burglaries and package thefts. So something that our residents can have a direct impact on reducing. So this at the end of the year, last 2 months, we've been having an educational campaign through our social media and also through community meetings, speaking with the residents. what they can do, just the tips they can do to drop these numbers. And I can tell you, I'm happy to say at the beginning of the year, this year to date, these last 2 months, we have a decrease in burglary at 37.5%. That's residential and business. Decrease in larceny thefts, 34%. And that includes grand theft, petty theft, shoplifting, vehicle break-ins, and auto part thefts. And we also had a 15% decrease in grand theft auto. So I just like to remind everyone regarding the burglar vehicles, don't keep anything in sight. Even an old coat in the back of the seat is a temptation for somebody to break your window and take that coat. They don't think of the value of the item. They break the window and they take the item, realizing that it's probably not worth anything after the fact, and you're left with a broken window or a broken lock. So what we'd like to suggest is if you can take everything out of the car when you leave, and if you can't, put it in your trunk prior to getting to your destination. We also like to say don't leave cell phones, GPS, laptops, charging cords inside the car. No checkbooks or credit cards, no cash, even the change in your ashtray. We'd like you to either not have it visible or take it with you. No wallets, purses, jackets, and sunglasses. Even $5 sunglasses. People will break windows for $5 sunglasses. So again, we think as community with community, you've seen this a good reduction of it, so we're happy with that. The last thing is our package thefts. We live in a different time now where we should not have any package delivered to our house if we're not home. That's just matter of fact. So what we'd like to suggest is have your package delivered to your work, have your package delivered to your relative or friend or your neighbor that's going to be home. Have your package held at the post office for pickup. Take advantage of the ship to the store where you can pick up the item after work at the store. I don't want to plug anybody, but Amazon does have the hub locations, the hub lockers, and we have 2 in Lawndale at the 7-Elevens on 15805 Prairie and 4401 Redondo, where that package will be shipped to that secured locker, and after work you can pick it up. Also, last thing is to request your package to have the signature confirmation, another tip. So far, like I said in the beginning of the year, these reduction in crime for crimes against property is looking good, and we're going to continue the outreach with the public. You can also get tips and more information on our Facebook page, and it's the South Los Angeles Sheriff Station if you want to like that page and follow us. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
All right, are there any questions of the sector report? All right, thank you for the report.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Okay, item E, oral communications. This is when you have the opportunity to speak to the Lawndale City Council on items that are not on the agenda. If you'd like to speak to the Lawndale City Council, I ask that you line up by the flag when it becomes your, you don't have to do that today. You line up by the flag when it becomes your turn. If you come to the podium, if you start with your name first, at about 2 minutes, the amber light will come on to give you the signal to start wrapping things up.
I'd like to address the council tonight on a related issue to the homeless issue, and that is one of panhandling. And I think if panhandling was properly handled, that would have a tremendous benefit to reducing homelessness. I would propose that the city pass a new ordinance that all panhandling anywhere in the city limits is outlawed. First offense punishable by a $100 fine, which could be abated if they go see these folks and get taken care of. But we need to stop the panhandling, which is absolutely directly related to the homeless situation. If they're not getting money from someplace, then they're much more likely to go someplace else. Now, I appreciate trying to help people, but let's face the facts, folks. There is a significant percentage of people that we will not be able to help, and they don't want to be helped, and they want to stay on the street. Now, my suggestion for that is stringent enforcement of the law, and they'll go someplace where it's not as stringently enforced. I would like to address, well, if I got another second, in this proposal for the homeless here, I have a major objection on the weekly cleanups. They want to give a 72-hour advance posting. I think that's ridiculous. We need to have a city law if we don't already have one. Anything left on public property for 24 hours is considered abandoned and subject to being disposed of at whatever means the city chooses. Anything on private property should be able to be removed immediately with no notice. That's my thoughts.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Chuck Rundle. I live on Mansfield, right by the freeway, very adjacent to the freeway. And I've come here before complaining about leaking sprinklers and that darn light on Manhattan Beach Boulevard in Hawthorne that nobody seems to care about. But a couple weeks ago, I tried to contact the sheriff to have some homeless people removed from the freeway. And I was informed that this body has more or less tied the hands of the county sheriff's department as far as removing their stuff and throwing them out. Saturday, I watched 2 deputies remove a woman from McDonald's. She was cussing, screaming, fighting, and yelling the whole way. They kept their cool, and they just walked her out. I see right there it says, the City of Lawndale, a partnership with the community we serve. Was the community notified when you guys decided that we're not going to throw the homeless people out anymore? I mean, was it, you're basically, you're tying the hands of the LA County Sheriff's Department. And did you contact any of the constituents, the people that vote for you, about this change in policy on the homeless? Or did you guys just decide that it was going to be? And I mean, I hate saying it, but we pay your salaries. That's a tried and tired statement, but we're the taxpayers. Why don't we get as good a treatment as you guys are giving the homeless people? And, you know, we deserve to be represented better than this. And I come here and tell you guys you're doing great jobs, and then I can't get homeless removed from the freeway. We've got, the impact of it is the smells, the sounds, the trash that they leave behind. I've seen people having sex on the side of the freeway by my house. They actually tied into one of our outdoor lights, took the light bulb out, put a thing in there, and they were watching TV on the side of the freeway on our electricity. I mean, come on, we got to get these people out of here, okay? That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, ma'am.
I like what you're knitting. Doris Hoffman. I live in the city of Lawndale, and I wish to thank whoever is responsible for putting information on our Channel 3, City of Lawndale. I have really enjoyed watching the history of the city of Lawndale this last week. And as I was leaving the house today, I hated coming to city council because on Channel 3 they were showing the history of the city again. Thank you, Jim, for all your work that you have in getting that together.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Hello, my name is Jessica Romero, and I'm the librarian over at the Lawndale Library. I just want to share a few events that we have coming up. We have a kids club, Bilingual Loteria night, and that's coming up on Thursday, March 5th from 3:30 to 4:30. We have a DIY constellation box, that's for teens, and that's coming up on Friday, March 6th from 3:30 to 4:30. And we have, for adults, a paper making workshop. That's coming up on Saturday, March 7th from 2 to 4 p.m. We have lots more activities, so I invite you guys to check out our website, and you can see everything that we have going on there. I also wanted to take a moment to inform you guys that this is going to be my last city council meeting for a little while. I'm going to be going on leave, but I'll be back. I don't quite know yet who's going to be taking over for me, but somebody will be there, and as soon as I know, I'll make sure to let Michael and yourself know, and Mike, no wait, Mike and Mike, right? Okay, I was confusing myself. I'll make sure to let them know. And yeah, I will be back. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Good evening, everyone. Mayor Paulie Miles and honorable council members. My name is Howard Ho. I'm the proud principal at Lewis High School. And I'm here this evening just to provide everyone with a brief update on everything that's going on at Lewis High School. So we had our open house about a month ago on February 5th, and we had about 200 parents show up to meet with our admin team, counselors, and teachers. The theme for this year's open house was You Matter, because we wanted to remind the parents that it's important for us to work together as a team, and that every bit of contribution from our parents inside and outside of school is important to us. And our parents were greeted by the school's band and had a chance to ask questions throughout the night. As for activities, Lusinger High School's speech and debate team recently hosted the Western Bay Forensic League debate tournament last weekend. Oh, I'm sorry, 2 weekends ago. Approximately 150 students from 14 local high schools were represented, and the students competed in Lincoln Douglas debate, public forum debate, and parliamentary debate. And the parents and judges and coaches that had not visited the school before were amazed by what they saw, both in the classrooms and the campus in general. Spring sports just kicked off, so please stop by to support our boys volleyball, baseball, and softball team. Baseball play against Lennox Academy tomorrow, and our boys volleyball play against a crosstown rival, Hawthorne High School. Both games are home games tomorrow starting at 3:30. And aside from athletics, I do want to let everyone know that we will be present representing Lusinger High School during the Lawndale Youth Parade on April 25th. Our marching band, cheer, and drill will be present representing Lusinger High School. And with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Cabeza. She'll give you guys a brief update in regards to some of our pathway academies.
Good evening. My name is Dr. Tanya Cabeza, and I'm proud associate principal at Lusinger High School. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to share about the unique instructional programs that we offer our almost 1,900 students this year at Lusinger High School. Our first academy is the Environmental Careers Academy. Students here are dedicated to observing the environment and being agents of change through sustainable design. They actually have their own garden on campus, on the back of campus, where they actually grow fruits and vegetables that our Culinary Arts Academy students use in their kitchens. Our Multimedia Careers Academy, the MCA, is our second largest academy on campus. Students here focus on studying arts, media, and entertainment by taking electives in game design, digital photography, and video production. We actually have our fully equipped sound studio where students actually film and produce a monthly TV show for our students called Loot TV. Our Culinary Arts Academy is the largest academy with almost 500 students, and they not only focus on culinary arts but also hospitality, catering, health, nutrition, and fitness. We're proud to say they have new state-of-the-art kitchens, and they actually have an operating cafe we call Lou Cafe, where we offer healthy menu options for teachers and staff every Tuesday and Thursday mornings. Our Advanced Academics Academy is for students looking for a more rigorous high school program at Lusinger, where they take advanced placement and honors courses each year, and they go visit universities throughout the state. Our dual immersion program is actually in its first year, our newest program, but we're welcoming students coming from the middle school level who have come from dual immersion programs, and so now they're taking Spanish, but also content classes in Spanish. We also have AVID, where for 4 years our students take an elective with the same teacher for 4 years to have that relationship to help them navigate through not just graduating from high school, but also accessing colleges and universities. We thank you, we appreciate your time, and we look forward to seeing you at Lusinger High School.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Pam London, 171st. The last meeting, our new city manager spoke about Marla and all the great things that she's doing. So I'd just like to reiterate, yes, she is a coup for this city, really. I think you would agree, and I think residents too would agree. I think Sean, same thing, major coup for this city. Matt and Michael. And our former city manager, never ever heard a bad word spoken about him. And you hear things in this city, I'm sorry, but you do. Not heard anything about you either, don't get me wrong. So things have changed over the last few years in this city with department heads and whatnot. I never thought that after having Pam in Matt's position, I never thought that there could be any improvement because she was great and she knew so much of the history of the codes and whatnot in the city. It was phenomenal. In the planning department, I loved Chris. I still love Chris, and I so miss Chris, and it's a shame he's gone. And he knew things that others will never know because he was here during a lot of the changes that were made in the city's codes and whatnot. I hope that everybody continues to appreciate all of our city staff as I do. And I don't even have a whole lot of interaction with them, and quite frankly, there's one department I really avoided like the plague because there was an evil entity there, but now we have Mr. Reyes, and that's gone. People are a lot happier. So tonight I'm being nice, which is rare, but I'm also being grateful and thankful to our city staff and our city manager. I certainly hope that you can continue to work really hard to fill Mr. Mendoki's shoes because he was also an asset to this city. Miss Israel too. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Okay, let's provide some comments from the council. Let's start with Councilman Osborne.
Thank you, Robert. Well, thank you, Pam. That's that's great to hear all those comments. Oh, he's not paying attention, but she's praising you, Mike. Okay. Thank you. And thank you to Howard, and I forgot, I didn't catch your name. Tanya. Thank you for the update on losing. You know, we have 2 alumni from losing her up here.
2 alumni, so
Pat can't stand it, but that's too bad.
But he's wearing blue.
There you go. And best of luck on your leave. Hurry back. Hope all works out. And Doris, really thank you for that. But the bigger thanks goes to Tom Strickfaden and his staff. They produced that film. That was for when we had our 50th anniversary incorporation. I heard that it had been aired again. You know, I got a copy of it. It's nice to see that every now and then because it's got so many people have now passed on. 2 of our past colleagues, Harold and Larry, and Jim Ramsey, of course, and others. It's amazing how time flies and people leave. But yeah, that's a good program. And then Chuck stepped out, but I would answer his concerns regarding everything. And I was going to ask Tiffany to say just a couple of words on that. It's all state law. It's not. This is. Our hands are kind of tied by what state law dictates, correct?
Well, state law and federal law.
And federal, yeah.
Right. A lot about what we're able to do with the homeless and their property and things of that nature and panhandling. There is a
well, I was going to get
First
to
Amendment
panhandling
right.
for Gary last, but yeah.
Right.
In other words, we do as much as we can do, but there are so many rules that are imposed upon us by the courts and the state and the feds and the county.
Right.
That we do as much as we can. I wish we could do more.
Right, and as the PATH representative said earlier, the Caltrans property, we don't have legal authority to enter onto. So we would not give instruction about that property.
Yeah. And then lastly, for Gary, I agree 100%. You know, for the last few years, I see the panhandlers. The worst of it's when they're on Hawthorne Boulevard. They get out in the traffic lanes, and I've been calling the sheriffs for, I don't know, 6-7 years that this has been going on. You go out by Rosecrans or Marine, they're out in the traffic, you know, tapping on glass and holding up cars and everybody, and somebody's going to get hit possibly. So you just got to keep on them, just keep reminding them. But it's very aggravating. That's all I got.
Well, that's all. That's everything. What you talking about?
Yeah.
No, I do appreciate everybody talking, and I don't want to go over too much of it repetitively. But yes, in regards to the panhandling, it is a problem. It's to the point where you need a dash cam because you have to be able to give a description of that person. I've had to do that 3 or 4 times myself, and even when I think I'm paying attention, they ask me a question. It's like I have no clue. I didn't watch. So, you know, it's just it is a problem all the way around, and I will pass it on.
Councilmember Pat Kearney.
And I want to thank everybody who spoke tonight, and I want to thank Ms. Librarian, where is she, for your great service, and hopefully get back soon. And thank you for all the events coming up, and to those 2 people from Lusinger, good luck with your season.
Mayor Pro Tem Suarez.
I want to thank everybody that came up and spoke, and I did want to bring up one recent court ruling that did kind of limit cities in Boise, Idaho. I don't know if you could speak a little to that and
Sure.
the recent change.
Sure, right. There was a federal court opinion recently that limited the amount that cities can do. They recognize it's a cruel and unusual punishment to enforce certain rules for homeless people if they don't have access to other facilities. So the city's working with the sheriffs and doing everything we can, as you'll hear more about tonight, to respect the people and their rights, as well as take care of the rest of the city and try and protect the public welfare and safety of our residents as well.
And to add, Miss Jessica Romero, I hope everything's good, and I hope you take this time to be well rested. And I will add that I am enjoying the two knitters in the audience. I'm an avid knitter, so I always appreciate seeing that craft still occurring. And with that, I'll pass it along.
Thank you. So I just wanted to add that, just to clarify, that we have not made a change in policy as to how we deal with homeless. The question was asked, did we ask the voters or the residents for this change? I know it sounds as if it's a change. It's not necessarily a change, but it's a response to a new and occurring problem. The homeless issue obviously has been around before the city of Lawndale, and is still kind of a relatively new problem. So we are responding to that problem. We're not changing any policy. So with that, there's no need to go out into the community to ask the voters for a policy change, because there's no policy change. What we are reflecting is what was being handed down, as was said earlier, by court decisions and also the state of California. The practice of waiting for 72 hours and giving advance notice before removing items, this policy is promoted and is promulgated by the Sheriff Department as well as other law enforcement agencies, also in response to litigations. So it's not the city of Lawndale that's tying the hands of the Sheriff's Department. We would love to be as aggressive as we are allowed to be, and we will, in fact, be as aggressive as the law will allow, if you will, in terms of abating homeless issues. But at the same time, we do have protocols and laws that we as a city and as law enforcement agency have to follow as well. So that's what you're really seeing them respond to, is what's been handed down by either the state or the federal government or court decisions. It was said that a case point was made by Caltrans that they couldn't get the person removed from the Caltrans property. Well, that's not unique to the city of Lawndale. That's statewide. Caltrans, as it was mentioned earlier, is now part of the team, if you will, to address abating the nuisance that's caused by the homeless encampments or what have you. So they're a new partner. But with that, they have protocols that they have to follow as well. I had an opportunity maybe about 4 months ago to work for a day with Caltrans. And man, you wouldn't believe like some of the stories that they were sharing with me in going through these homeless encampments. Some of these homeless encampments may look like, well, all you have to do is go in and clean it out. But some of these homeless encampments could be a hazard, a health hazards. Some of the times they even booby trap the homeless the encampment. So if a homeless person decides that he or she needs to leave their spot for a little while, sometimes they have them booby traps with urine, feces, and all kind of items. Sometimes it's to dissuade other homeless individuals from raiding their camp while they're out. And so with that, Caltrans have to move very carefully with abating those matters. There's one of our neighboring cities came to the state and they complained that there's a piece of Caltrans property in a said city and that homeless always encamp there. And Caltrans come and they clean it out and get them out, and they put a new lock on the door, on the gate, only for the lock obviously to be, cut again. Caltrans' response is, well, whenever it happens, let us know, and we'll come out and we'll clean it out and we'll put another lock on it. that again goes to my question of success, because they will clean out the homeless camp, but only next week you have a new group of individuals there with a new lock. Well, of course, the lock has been breached at that time, and so that's not unique for the city of Lawndale. But we are tackling this issue as aggressively as we can. So I don't want anyone to think this is a new policy and that we're just allowing the homeless just to run around free and to be a nuisance and, you know, a danger to, you know, to society. And I understand there's some homeless people that might be a little aggressive because they have some mental challenges or what have you. But we have to work within the framework that is given to us, unfortunately. But we are working on it, so we do hear you, and we are working on those issues. I want to thank everyone who spoke tonight, the Losing representatives for coming out, the principal for coming out and sharing. I did have that one question about what's going on over in Losing, the building project, but we can talk about that. I'm not sure what's going on over there on that. And I did have one more. Mayor Pro Tem may have covered it. Yes, she did. Okay, with that, I'll end my comments and just thank everyone for coming out. We'll move our agenda right along, and we're now at item G, which is our consent calendar. What is the pleasure of this body concerning such?
Well, if there's no additions or subtractions, I'll make a motion to accept.
Is there any additions or subtractions?
I'll second it.
Okay, motion been made that we accept the consent.
Robert, can I ask one quick question?
Yes.
Mike might know. Do we already have a water filling station over at Hopper? Because this is for the inclusion of 2 Hogan and Rudolph. Do we already have one at Hopper?
No, not at Hopper.
That might be coming down the pike sometime.
That will be Hopper and definitely in the next round.
Okay, just curious.
Yeah.
So does this cost $2,000? So $2,000 for each unit, or?
No, each unit was approximately $3,800. The $2,000 was a grant from.
That was a grant from the West.
Yeah, from West Basin Municipal Water District.
Okay. They only put 2,000 on it?
Once a year,
Okay.
limits 2,000.
Okay.
So
Okay,
we'll be
got
hitting up again this year probably.
Okay, great. Got it. Okay, thank you. Any questions on the motion? The motion's been made by Mr. Pat Kearney and Mayor Pro Tem Suarez. Second motion. Is there any debate or discussion on the motion to accept the consent calendar? Hearing none, will the council please vote?
Motion approved unanimously.
Thank you, Madam City Clerk. Next item on the agenda is item 9, City of Lawndale website redesign. Let's have a staff report.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and council members. The item before you is to approve a contract service agreement for website redesign and ongoing support services. Our current website was launched in 2001 and is an upgraded version of what has previously been designed by city staff. And although it was a great site when it was initially developed by staff, it has become outdated. Some of the issues identified was its lack of visual appeal, its difficult website navigation, some plain navigation buttons, no real search functionality, difficult content management system, which is the ability to make edits to the website itself, and the use of outdated software to run the website. So here's our current website. As you can see, everything is a little bit cluttered, disorganized. You see there's 2 kind of menu bars at the top. There's menu bars on the left and right side. Makes it difficult to navigate. There's no, the navigation buttons are all the same and cannot really be distinguished from one another. If you notice, the search bar is very small and in the left, tucked away in the left-hand corner, can be overlooked. It's really a difficult CMS, which means it's difficult to edit for staff. Currently, only one administrator handles all staff content, so that leads to a lot of broken links and outdated content that happens. And the software that's being used is Adobe Dreamweaver, which is a really kind of outdated software for website design. So when we approached redesigning the website, we had these objectives in mind. To have a modern design to capture the city's culture and environment, some user-friendly features, and I'll get into just a few of them. Mobile optimized features where the website can be displayed on a mobile device or a tablet, and some multilingual and accessibility content to be used on the website itself. Security, have more robust security features to prevent email harvesters, phishers, and hackers. Interactivity, which means just having more complete forms and things of that nature. Is also a record central, is something of a design feature that can be implemented. Comprehensive content migration, which means would be pulling some information from our old site into a new site, and to make it easier for staff to edit content. So an easy back-end process. So on September 11th, 2019, city staff released a request for proposals to 11 website design companies who specialize in municipal websites. On October 24th, 2019, the city clerk department received 16 sealed proposals, and after careful review and consideration by a staff selection committee, it was decided that Intrado, Civic Live, the platform, would provide the best fit for the city's needs. Civic Live, the platform, met all the redesign objectives. It was an easy and good overall content management system that staff can use. There is a lot of potential web skins or web designs that were offered, and I'll show you a few slides of some websites they have done. And two of the things that separated them were unlimited 24/7, 365 ongoing maintenance, security, and support. So they can be reached at any time, unlimited. And also a free web design refresh in year 4 of the contract, which is huge. Technology always changes, designs always change. So that was big. Like I said, no other vendor could really offer that. So here's the city of Sierra Madre, simplified menu. On the left, you can see the kind of images for each topic. Hero image in the middle, nice, clean kind of setup. City of Coronado, the same thing, very simplified menu. They kind of have key aspects up in the front: arts, culture, recreation, golf, their TV station, and other activities, as well as more hotkey buttons or hotkey kind of images, icons at the bottom. City of Grand Terrace, I really like what they've done here with if you look on the left-hand side, I'm sorry, the laser pointer isn't really showing. Oh, there it is. This kind of widget that sticks out that is kind of a direct access to all your social media platforms and contact information. I notice contact information is key, and so it's kind of a one-stop shop. You can find it if you need a call or email right away, right there, as long as they've inserted this kind of weather thing, which I don't really like, but it's there. That's the next one. And this one I really like. This is one of their newer kind of web skins, is the Glendale, Arizona. It's very slick, very new. I love this search bar right in the middle, so there's no kind of second guessing. It's right there for you. You don't have to kind of guess or fumble around. Also, the language kind of selector up there that runs on Google Translate. Find your language of choice, as well as the social media and the hotkeys. So that concludes my report. The staff recommendation is to approve a contract service agreement with Intrado Interactive Services Corporation for a website redesign and ongoing hosting, maintenance, support, and security services for a 5-year term for an amount not to exceed $45,100.
Okay, thank you for that presentation. Are there any questions on that presentation? Okay, what is the pleasure of this? Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. Are we going to take into account also for mobile users, for phones?
Yes, this does have they call it a reactive display. So the display will shrink in size and conform itself to whatever device you're using.
It's a nice technology update that didn't exist in 2001.
Yes, sir.
If we launch the new one in let's say some glitch or problem arises in the near future, how quickly can that be addressed? Is that handled by the company, the contractor?
Yeah, it would be their support service, which is unlimited at any time, and they have a 99.9% up rate.
And how quickly can it be adapted to if there is some issue that staff feels this application's not working right? Can it be repaired or changed?
I believe they tier it. I have to look back, but I believe they tier it based on the need. So if your website goes down, they'll work on it right away to get it back up. But if it's small things, they'll get to them on like a ticket basis.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I
Yes,
actually have
ma'am.
another question, sorry.
Yes, ma'am.
And this is for Marla, and I think, and Matthew. With regards, there's an initial startup cost, and then that's going to be, because we allocated 50,000. So that's going to be the initial, it's going to be pretty much half. And then the continuing cost is going to be for subsequent budgets, or?
Yeah, it'll be on subsequent, the software support will be subsequent budgeted in.
And that'll
It'll
be a new,
4,800, yeah.
a new budget that we incorporate into?
Yes.
Okay.
But within this
But
contract.
it's, but it still wouldn't, yeah.
Yeah,
In
it's
this
within-
contract
it's within
sum.
this-
This should be everything you have to pay them for this 5-year term.
Okay.
And Mr. Mayor, if I might, I just wanted to congratulate both Matt and Marla for putting together a good process for selecting this firm. And I did want to point out, as Matt mentioned, the different websites from the different cities that you saw up there, those were websites from the same, done by the same company, by Intrado, Civic Live. And I think the point of showing those slides is that each one of those websites for those different cities are different. They're very distinct from each other. And that's, I think, something that will be very beneficial for us. Working with Intrado, they'll be able to help us to create a website that's tailored to how we want it to look. So it'll be very, it can be somewhat similar to some of those websites, but it also could be very different depending on how we would like to, how we would like to have it look.
Yes.
So of course, if any of you have any thoughts or input, we'll be glad to take your input as well.
Very good. Thank you. What is the pleasure of this body concerning this item?
Well, if there's no more questions, I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second it.
Okay, so this item, okay, so there's been a motion to approve on item number 9 by Reed and seconded by Suarez. Is there any debate or discussion on the motion? No. Seeing none, would the council please vote on item 9?
Motion approved unanimously.
Thank you, Madam. Item number 10, operations plans for interaction with the homeless residents. Let's have a staff report.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, honorable members of the council. Thank you for this opportunity to speak with you this evening. I know we've been talking about homelessness a lot this evening. I know this has been kind of looked forward to. Tonight I want to speak to you about the homeless operations plan that we're looking to incorporate. We understand the frustrations of the community and the business owners. We also recognize that there are some legal concerns in terms of what we're allowed to do. And in keeping in mind the rights of the homeless, we want to present a plan that allows for us to provide services for them, get them into services off the streets, to keep the health and safety of our community the way it should be. We also recognize that there are laws that they need to adhere to, as all citizens do, and this plan will incorporate all of those things. If I could just begin. I'd like to begin just with the definition of homelessness. There are a number of agencies, as Haley said earlier, that deal with the homeless. There are government entities. There are now private industries. There are nonprofits, and there are various descriptions for homelessness. These are 5 of the ones that typically land on everyone's radar. Someone who lacks a fixed nighttime residence, someone living in housing below minimum standards with no heating, no electricity, no plumbing, someone that sleeps in a public or private space not designated for sleep, someone unable to obtain adequate safe housing due to unsteady income, or someone moving between temporary shelters on a regular basis. All these would be classifications of homelessness. These homeless statistics that I'm going to pull up here are from 2019. The Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority homeless count for 2019. As Haley said earlier, the 2020 results are not in yet, but these are going to be pretty accurate for what our purposes tonight are. In the United States, at any given time, there are approximately 1.5 million homeless people in the United States. That breaks down to about 950,000 that are sheltered or in some sort of government or nonprofit housing. That leaves an additional 550,000 homeless people in the United States on any given night. The top 5 states that have issues with homeless are there, 1 through 5. California, as you can see, is the number 1 percentage for homelessness in America. Los Angeles alone, from 2018 to 2019, saw an increase of 12% to 58,000 homeless people. If you look at that number and take the 550,000 that are homeless in America nightly, you are looking at approximately more than 10% of the entire population of homeless in the United States is centered in Los Angeles, California. Some of the factors that add to homelessness are drug or alcohol addiction, serious mental illness, post-traumatic stress disorder, economic challenges, and expensive costs of housing. Part of the reason that we see such an increase in homelessness in the state of California, and specifically Los Angeles, is because our warmer weather. It's much easier to survive winter in California, specifically in Los Angeles, than it is in, say, Wisconsin or Minnesota. Additionally, the cost of housing in Los Angeles is detrimental, and it's very expensive to live here, and these are 2 factors that contribute to the number of housing, or the number of homeless in Los Angeles. The city of Lawndale is not immune from all the problems of homelessness. It is affecting our borders, it is affecting our businesses and our residents. You can hear the frustration in the people that I spoke to this evening. We understand there's challenges, and we do have to respect the rights of the homeless, but we also want to do what we can to protect our own community, our own staff, and what we want to do is a 3-tiered approach to assisting the homeless in Lawndale. Those are going to include daily patrols and contact with homeless and with outreach services and city staff. We are going to continue weekly cleanups of the encampments, but with new restrictions that we're going to put, but they won't slow down the cleanups. And we're going to have increased presence and interaction with our sheriff's department. We're looking at more arrests, more people taken off of our city streets for crimes that they're committing on our city's streets. Beginning with the first tenet of what we're going to be doing, the daily patrols and contact with homeless. Our city staff will go out daily in teams of 2 for about an hour to an hour and a half, and we will catalog and record all the homeless that we have in the community. We'll get the information that we can from them, names, birth dates, any sort of military service, any sort of family ties, anything that they're willing to give us, we're going to catalog and keep that information on record. We are going to use the LA HOP system, which is we're already using now. It is a website and it is also a mobile site. It allows you to put the information of the homeless person, where they're located, the description, gender, height, weight, anything you can utilize, what they're wearing, where they're located, and it's instantly sent off to a centralized database and then resent to an appropriate outreach service provider. As I said, this is currently being utilized right now. Also, LA HOP does send you a response, so that information will also be saved. So that will occur, and again, the daily patrols will happen with my city staff with a recurring 2-person team daily, so that we can make as much contact as we can. Our objective is to bombard the homeless with service offers with the hope that eventually they're going to accept those service offers. Secondly, we are going to continue the weekly cleanups. We did take a temporary pause on them, just long enough to kind of get our bearings right and find out exactly what we need to do legally. I know the 72 hours seems inappropriate, but part of the reason we do that is to make sure that safety-wise for us, legally, we can't just put no posting, just come and take things. As Tiffany said earlier, there have been cities that have faced litigation, particularly there's a Southern California city that lost a lawsuit. They were grabbing staff and law enforcement are grabbing backpacks, things like that, luggage, throwing it away. The Fourth Amendment protects against this illegal search and seizure. You can't just take somebody's stuff because you said it was trash. You can't make that determination. But by putting a posting there and allowing them to take their things, we are protecting ourselves. And this is a guideline set by the host team, which is the LASD homeless team. They gave my staff a training about 2 weeks ago. We've also met with the higher ups, and our Sergeant Kitchen, who's with the host team, and Lieutenant Diedrich. They have a lot of experience with this. They said 72 hours should be sufficient. They actually post for 14 days in advance before they do their cleanups. Now, of course, the cleanups they deal with are quite a bit more sizable than ours. They have up to 3 dozen people, maybe up 2 city blocks worth of cleanups that they're handling. We don't have anything that size, but we do have places in Caltrans areas, along the railroad corridor, and just on city streets that we want to clean up. So we are going to put the postings up on probably Mondays or Sundays, as I have people on Sundays, just so there's 72 hours in advance of the cleanup occurring. Also, we're going to document the postings that go up, so there's no discrepancies, and all these records will be kept so that we have proof that we were doing what we said we were going to do. Prior to the cleanup, outreach providers will be made aware of the pending cleanup, so they can come in, they can talk to the homeless and begin the outreach. Again, this is all part of the services that we're trying to offer to the homeless. We hope for the success of PATH and for the success of LASA, but at the same time, a lot of this is to protect our city, our residents from litigation in case someone claims that we weren't doing the proper techniques before taking things. Anything left behind at the cleanups that the homeless do not want to take with them will be disposed of. And that will also be documented. Lastly, the third tenet of this operation plan is that we are going to have an increased Sheriff's Department presence and enforcement. We recognize and we have talked to advocates for the homeless, and we understand that while they do have rights, they are not afforded more rights than other citizens. They are not allowed to be intoxicated in public. They can't be under the influence of any narcotics. They can't be involved in indecent exposure. And I hadn't thought about it, but I imagine panhandling would also be something they would not be allowed to do. These are things that our sheriffs are going to take a much more active approach in. They're going to play a role, and they're going to actually begin to make arrests. We have changed the focus of our SAO team to focus specifically on the homeless, so they'll be out on a daily basis making arrests on the homeless. We recognize that we will be putting a deputy off the city streets for 2 to 4 hours while he's booking the person in custody. But when the person is released, they'll be released in South LA Station, so they'll have to make their way back here if that's what they hope to do. Beyond that, though, we recognize there's laws that they have to follow. They are not afforded more rights than any you and I are, so this is what we want to acknowledge. So they will be making arrests for these things. We also understand that some of these things are citable offenses. One of the challenges with issuing citations to someone who is homeless is the motivational drivers are not there to pay that citation. If any of us gets a ticket, we're going to pay that ticket because it'll compound, it'll turn into collections, it'll turn into liens on our property or wages that are going to be taken. Homeless have no wages, they have no houses to put liens on, and they're paying no taxes. So we recognize that writing a citation to a homeless person is really not going to resolve anything. So making the arrest, we hope, will do more to correct these behaviors that they're engaging in. Ultimately, as I said, the purpose of this operations plan is 3 tenants involved. So we're going to do daily patrols by city staff, where we're recording the information of the homeless. We're going to do weekly cleanups, which include our public works team, our LASD team, and part of my team. Homeless will be allowed to take their things. Postings will be set up. Documentation will occur, and trash will be disposed of that isn't claimed. Lastly, we are going to see more arrests by our sheriff's department. And ultimately, we recognize that this plan is not the ultimate solution to solving homelessness. This is just a beginning step. This can develop and grow. In places I've worked before, we've given monthly presentations to the community to get their input. We've had sheriffs there, and we've had members from outreach organizations there as well to give information to the public so their frustrations could be addressed regularly and we could think of solutions. But again, for now, this is what we're looking to do. The goal of this is to lessen the amount of homeless on the city streets, to protect our city from litigation, and also to protect our city staff. And at this time, I can answer any questions. We also want to ensure the health and safety of our residents. So if there's any questions, I can go ahead and answer those.
Okay, thank you for that comprehensive report and plan. Is there any questions of the
I
report
do.
and plan? Yes, sir.
I want to thank Michael and Kevin for working on this. It's long overdue, so I'm very happy to see this. Just my own personal observations, and I'm being a realist. I don't think you'll never stop 100% of the problem, but it's really gotten worse in the last couple of years in particular. And there's one individual we saw in one of the images there. I mean, he's leaving piles of human waste up and down the sidewalks in a residential neighborhood that's traveled by school kids going to and from both the high school and the junior high. And I say enough's enough. This sort of thing is just, it's a public health issue, what's happening now. So I want to thank you again. I think this is the right way to proceed. Got to be a little bit more proactive than just accepting it, because it's growing and getting worse. And you see it on social media. There's a Lawndale page that I see people put comments on, and they're talking about this. They're noticing it as well. So thanks again.
Thanks, sir. Thank you for providing the photographs that we use in this, this presentation. I was going to say that Kevin and I did have been immersing ourselves in this topic. We did speak with Commander Tardy this past Thursday. We spoke with Captain Allen and several other lieutenants, and they all agree that these are within our legal means to make arrests for things like intoxication in public, use of narcotics, indecent exposure, and so forth.
And Councilmember Osborne, if I might. You know, of course, you know, a lot of members of the public are very compassionate and you know, want to be helpful for folks that are on the street and are homeless. But we also want to recognize that patience is wearing thin amongst residents who live in neighborhoods where, you know, they have this as a nuisance, where, you know, they have to, you know, drive by every day, where their children have to walk by to school and see every day. And so what we were hoping for with this plan was to come up with sort of a plan of action that is balanced, where, you know, we're trying to, you know, one, be helpful and help homeless folks into services that they might need, but at the same time making sure that the health, safety, and general welfare of our residents are also protected. So again, it's meant to be a balanced approach within, you know, our ability to do so legally.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great, because there are some people that do respond to the help that can be offered, and that's wonderful. We wish they were all that case. We know that they're not. There are some individuals that you just got to use tough love. It's just a state of reality.
And Mr. Mayor, if I could weigh in, if you were done, Councilmember Osborne.
Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to add 2 points of clarification on some of these topics we've been talking about tonight. First, there's been conversations about private property by some of the members of the public, and I just wanted to clarify that the city can't do anything on private property. It's up to those property owners to call law enforcement or to have their staff deal with those.
Right.
The city can only address the issues that are happening on the public property. And then also I wanted to address briefly on panhandling. Our code is as up to date as the last court case that came out of the federal courts, which is about probably 7 or 8 years ago now. So panhandlers are allowed. They have a free speech right to ask people for money, but they cannot impede access. So they can't block a sidewalk to prevent ADA access. They're not supposed to go in streets, things of that nature. When they cross those lines, that's when it's right to be calling
It's when they're in traffic
law
lanes
enforcement.
and so forth. that
Right.
I've been reporting it. But
Right. So our code is as strong as we can be on that
Exactly.
issue. That was it. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's hear from Councilmember Reed.
No, just I appreciate you guys putting that together. You know, it's not like going to the dentist. You don't take care of your teeth, you ignore them, they go away. This isn't going to go away. So it's a good action, it's a good plan, and you know, just bear with us, folks, as you see them, call them. If we should already be on top of them with this.
Okay.
I do.
Peck
Just one observation on the holding of the items before they're disposed. Why are we doing 90 days? If you have some dingy stuff in a lot, we have a container for 90 days, that's going to be ripe when you open the door.
Yeah.
Why do we have 90 days?
Sure, I can address that, Councilman McCurney. Thank you for that question. 90 days has actually just been a standard that's been set by a number of other cities who do the similar thing. Soil items, cardboard boxes that have been slept on are not going to be collected. We're only looking at things that would conceivably have value, medications, paperwork, luggage, perhaps. Things that aren't going to be, so we're not looking to take any kind of food or things like that. Those will be disposed
The
of.
stuff could be in the suitcases and the backpacks too.
Correct. And
90 days is too long. We're not other cities, we're Lawndale.
Of course, of course.
Yeah, I think maybe 60 days or 30 days would be long enough.
And, Councilmember Kearney, yeah, and that's something we can certainly look at once we start this and get into it and see some of the, the challenges with what we're doing, the good and the bad. As Michael has mentioned, a lot of what we've put together was taken from the Sheriff's Department's host team and how they go about their process. We wanted to follow their guidelines, if you will, because they made it very clear to us that the process that they've put in place, their protocols, have been very successful and more importantly, has not led to any claims or lawsuits of their deputies for their handling of homeless encampments or dealing with homeless. So based on that track record, we wanted to use their standard. However, like I mentioned, if we need to modify our process down the road, we can certainly do that.
Well, let me piggyback on that before you let go. Now, does that include, like, if it's what I describe as a mobile encampment, meaning they're on wheels and they can move from one location to another location? The reason why I ask that is because there's some unincorporated part of the county, I won't say where, that the Sheriff Department, I assume that this plan is system-wide, and clearly it's not working in this community that I'm speaking of. Is it because they have a mobile, what I'm calling a mobile encampment?
Well, and keep in mind, the homeless folks have rights. Homeless individuals have rights. So, and this may be part of the frustration that we have in dealing with it, and what we're seeing from the public as well. A homeless individual or a group of homeless people on the sidewalk, if they are not blocking access and otherwise doing anything illegal, according to the law, they are allowed to be there. So again, that's part of the frustration. Where we can, take steps through the Sheriff's Department, again, is when there's illegal behavior. And if that's observed at that point, we can then make an arrest and then remove that individual or individuals from, the streets, temporarily, but at least we can do it for that time. But otherwise, there's not a whole lot we can do legally to address somebody who's just wanting to be on our sidewalk.
Okay, let me give it back to Pat Curry.
Okay, just one more question. Maybe Kevin and Mike, you can check in with PATH or South Bay COG and to see if they'll have funding for this for the 2480 instead of coming out of our pockets, coming with some of the funding to help the homeless off the street. Okay, maybe you'll find you, talk to them. Okay.
We'll look into that.
Okay.
Council, Mayor Pro Tem Flores.
I just wanted to say great work on this for staff and Councilmember Osborne, right? This has been a long time coming, and I hope this will serve as a starting point, and then from there we can develop depending on what we're seeing and how it's working, and kind of develop this plan as we go along and involve our various organizations and different groups to help out, and then hopefully we can follow back and see how it's going.
Thank you. And I just want to add one other item. First of all, to thank the staff, Michael and the staff and the city manager for putting this plan together. A lot of work went into it, and I want to thank you guys for putting this together. Pretty comprehensive. Just one observation. I know there's in one of our neighboring cities, I'm told that they have that they fund a number, and I think the number is 10 beds at a certain shelter, because the notion is that you can't quote unquote force people off the streets unless you have somewhere for them to go, identify for them to go. That's when you really run into some problems. You seem to have more leeway when you're able to provide an opportunity for housing, whether it's temporary housing or what have you. I'm told that this certain community have a number of beds that they as a city basically fund to reserve these beds, so when they do have a homeless person that will avail themselves of the bed, the bed is available, one, and two, they have that extra layer of protection to say that we had a bed available. They just refused to go to the bed to avail themselves of that shelter, and therefore they're able to utilize these tools more strongly. I'm wondering, do we have the opportunity to do the same? Now, of course, they pay for that out of city budget because their whole notion was that, well, we can't wait for, we can't wait for the county, we can't wait for PATH. We have to do all that we can do, at least as a city. And that's one of the tools that they have decided that we're going to reserve these beds so that at any given time, there's 10 beds available. Well, at least, up to 10 beds, I should say, available for them to refer. Is there opportunities for us to do the same?
Of course, this is all driven by funding, how much funding we have, and then available beds. Michael can answer this a little more, but we have reached out to other cities who are building their own shelter. City of Bellflower, for example, and Michael, if you want to expand on that.
Yeah, I spoke with the Director of Public Safety, Joel Hochman, just this past week about the shelter they're building. Their shelter is paid for by city funds and will be completed in April or May. At this time, they said they're not interested in taking any homeless from any other communities. They want to see how successful it is in the first year with their own homeless. But we could reach out to other. I don't know if that was the city you were referring to.
No, it's one of our neighboring cities.
Oh, okay. But I could certainly reach out to any cities that would be willing to do that. I think they would probably do that, though, at a cost. They would probably want to see some sort of funding.
Okay. And not to be confused, so just so I'm clear, I'm not advocating that we build a homeless shelter. So that's not what I'm advocating. I'm just advocating that there are some beds available, that we put money down, reserve those beds so those beds are available should we need them as a community, so that we can refer them, our homeless people, to that bed.
Robert, you bring up
not
a
to
good
build
point.
a shelter.
You bring up a good point. I'm thinking, maybe, are you thinking of the Long Beach site? Does that count towards an available shelter, even though it's not in our city? And Tiffany might know the answer.
Yes.
Yes, you just have to have a bed to offer them, and if they decline, then you can say, then it's not okay that you're going
So
to the bathroom.
the Long
there,
Beach
for example.
location would qualify for us because it's facilitated through PATH, who works for us.
It could be.
Correct. It can be anyone.
Right, it could be
Yeah.
completely unrelated. If there's a bed that we have access to take someone and the
other
ability
than
to
Long
take
Beach
them
is
that.
fine.
Mhm.
Okay.
So let's say the bed is, I'm just making up a number, so let's say the value of the bed is equivalent to $50 a night, right? So basically, we would be paying X amount of dollars to have X amount of beds available. It might be 2 beds, 3 beds, or what have you. That way, that bed, from understanding how their program works, is that after certain hours, if the city has not called and said we have someone for that bed, then it's open for that night. So of course, a bed does not go empty for the night. You wouldn't want that if you have someone that wants the bed. But at least the city will have the offer of first refusal, if you will, to house someone for the night. Anyway, yes, and it is a budget. They decided to take money out of their budget because it was a priority, for the city. So I think that's something we might.
Yeah, it's a matter of funding. There's a lot of, I think, things that we aren't just clear on. So we'll have to try to understand the mechanics of how that works, working with our partners, and so we can come back with you with more information on that.
Yeah, and building into that will be a listing of nonprofits that are available within the network. Like I said, I do know one that is connected with the county supervisors. It's actually in Los Angeles. That's where I was finally able to get her, but I had to do that by hand myself. So, just getting this up and running is going to be the best piece.
Okay, thank you for that report. Thank you. Okay, next item on our agenda is items from the city manager. City manager's report.
Yes, thank you.
Do we have to take
You
action
want
on
us to
this?
officially adopt this? Okay, let's officially adopt it.
I'll make a motion to approve.
So the motion's been made by Osborne that we adopt the operation plans for interaction with the homeless residents, and it's been seconded by Mr. Pat Kearney. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, would the council please vote?
Motion approved unanimously.
Thank you, madam. The next item is city manager's report.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I don't have a lot, but just very briefly, there have been comments mentioned about city staff, and after 3 months on the job, I just wanted to echo those comments. City staff, in the time I've been here, specifically our department heads, are very hardworking folks. They have the best interests of the city in mind. I'm really glad and happy to be working with them. There's a lot of great opportunity. They've got lots of good ideas. I've got some ideas of my own to move forward, I truly believe that we're going to have some very good things and initiatives to bring forward to you in the months and years ahead. So,
good.
Very good. We like initiatives. All right. Let's see. Okay, that will be the city manager's report. So our next item is items from the mayor or council members. Anything you'd like to report? Any meals you may have consumed?
Well, I was out of town for part of the time between the last meeting. But I did want to inform you that our vector control district, Robert Saviscus, has announced his retirement. It'll probably still be several months away, but he's been with the district for, like 35 years or something, long time. And we've been conducting interviews for his successor, so I'll let you know when that occurs.
Okay,
That's all.
Thank you. Yes, sir, Mr. Reed.
Okay, no, I have nothing new to report.
Okay, yes, sir. Mr. Pat Kern.
I have a couple. I attended the coffee and conversation with Assemblywoman Autumn Burke, and represents the city of Lawndale. Robert was there, but he's wearing his other hat.
You sure did.
So I was there representing the city of Lawndale, and then Mayor Pro Tem Suarez and I attended the opening day festivities of Lawndale Little League. With that, I'll pass it on.
Mayor Pro Tem Suarez.
I also attended the South Bay City's Council of Government Board of Directors meeting last Thursday. We are having our General Assembly March, is it 19th? Okay, and so I encourage you all to attend. They give a lot of information and panels, and it should be interesting, so keep your calendar open.
Thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. And I attended the sanitation district of, which included a tour at the Carson facility. This time we met at a new place, our Carson facility. And that facility there in Carson will actually going to be our facility where we're doing a project with the Metropolitan Water District, where we're reclaiming water and cleaning the water up to former water that used to be, wastewater, and now the grade is so high you might be tempted to drink it. And then the water goes actually to the Metropolitan Water District instead of discharging it back into the ocean. And so it's a source of water that will be used to recharge either the water table instead of going out back to the ocean. They told me that it's perfectly safe and it's higher quality than even drinking water standards. So who knows? We'll see. but that was it. I also attended the Lawndale High School. It was called For the Culture, a Black History Month program that was conducted and given by the students of Lawndale High School, and that was a great program to attend. That was this past Friday, and that's all for me.
Oh, yeah, and just to remind everybody, tomorrow's Election Day.
Okay, he wants to remind everyone that tomorrow is the Election Day, so if you have not voted already, you may want to do so tomorrow. That's your last opportunity to do so. March the 3rd is the official date. Yeah, and we do have a voting center right at the library, so in case you was wondering where you can vote, you can actually vote anywhere in LA County, any vote center, including the Lawndale Library here in Lawndale. So in closing an adjournment, Treva Henderson, she passed away on February the 12th at the age of 93, just 7 days after her husband, Mart, passed away. And everyone knows the Hendersons here in Lawndale. The Hendersons were one of the original founding couples of the Lawndale Travel Club, which continues to thrive on this day. They had services for retrieval was held on the 27th of February at Green Hills Mortuary. And at this time, we want to send our condolences to the Henderson families on her passing. And so we will adjourn in her memory tonight. And
I just want to say, besides Morton Treva Henderson, the founding members of the Travel Club were Ken and Phyllis Hatcher, and Gladys and Jack Bright, which all 6 of them are no longer with us.
And we will adjourn. Okay, so the next regularly scheduled meeting of the Lawndale City Council will be held at 6:30 p.m. on Monday, March 16th. In these chambers, it is now 8:33, and we are adjourned. Thank you.